Hey, hey, welcome once again to the Jewish Fusion Wedding Talk Show. And welcome to day 5. We are on day 5 for our month-long series on planning your Jewish Fusion wedding. The next 4 episodes cover the most important questions to answer early on when planning a fusion wedding. There are some distinct differences when you are combining 2 different traditions into a wedding and marriage that require answering these questions up front. We found over the years that when you answer these questions before you set your plan in motion, it will save you a lot of time, it'll save you money, and it will save you stress in your future planning process. Plus, when you are open with your immediate family and when you're open to your immediate families and you find out from the beginning what their expectations are and what they would like to see in the wedding, at least we get it on the table, and then you can decide what is going to be best for you. Now, in this episode, we're going to reveal those 4 questions that are necessary for you to answer. And we're going to answer the first question today. And then in the following and next 3 days, we will cover each of those questions each day. So today is going to be question 1. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Yehudit Steinberg, and I am your host here for the Jewish Fusion Wedding Show. And I'm also the founder of Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network, which is an online resource we started back in 2003. So it's been a while for couples and families from mixed heritage and traditions. I partner with couples and their families and wedding professionals to ensure that both wedding traditions are integrated with the entire event for your specific wedding in a way that makes you and your family and guests feel comfortable and welcome. And we know that there's not just one way to do this. And we're going to get into a couple of the different options today that you can start considering. So maybe you happen to know somebody that is dealing with this issue right now. And I suggest that you might want to let them know that this show is available, because over the days, every weekday in June, we are going to go live and we're going to answer different aspects of planning a fusion wedding with using the example of a Jewish interfaith wedding, or as I call it, Jewish fusion wedding, which is bringing both cultures together, or or not, but there happens to be 2 different heritage or religions that are that you have. Anyway, so if you're listening on the live, let me know where you're listening from and maybe how you found out about this particular show. I'd love to hear from you. And we're going to move forward now and talk about and reveal the 4 questions. So let me get whoops. Sorry about that. There we go. And we're going to hide that. And let's go and talk about the 4 questions. So question number 1 is how to incorporate different traditions into your wedding. And that is what we're going to dive into a little bit in this short tutorial. The next question that we will talk about tomorrow is who will officiate the ceremony, because there is more than one option on who may officiate. And a little tip ahead of time is that if one of the partners are Jewish, you actually don't need to have a rabbi if you choose not to. So that's question number 2, and we will go over that tomorrow. And then there's question 3. Where will the wedding and ceremonies take place? And we'll do that discussion so we are live, and for those of you on the replay, welcome. But for those of you that are live, we are now on today's Tuesday. And so on Thursday this week, we will be discussing the question, where will the wedding and ceremonies take place? And then the 4th question is, how can each partner's traditions be honored? And we'll deal with that on Friday of this week. If you are watching this series live, if you're on the replay, then it will be a couple of episodes after this one. So moving right along, let's talk about how to incorporate different traditions into your wedding. So, as I said, there's more than one way to say I do. And at this point, with this first question, you want to kind of answer yourself which is best for you. Now, as I go through these options, what I'm going to suggest, and what I have had our couples do for many years, is that you're going to sit with this question first by yourself, and you want to really think about what's your best case scenario, what's going to work best for you. What are your top priorities, and what are your, I like it, but I can compromise? Because one of the first things that is really important in a marriage is learning how to compromise, because up until this point, you've been moving along your path by yourself, or you may have been with other people, but this is going to be the first time that you are really going to be with your partner, and he or she is going to have they're going to have their preferences too, and you want to figure out for yourself what is most important to you. And then you encourage your partner to do the same, and then you come together with a conversation and figure out where the two of you are at. So the next step, so now what I'm going to talk about are what are some of the options that couples have done. One option is, so we're taking a big picture, a big vision view of what you're, kind of the skeleton, the outline of what your wedding is going to look like. So are you going to have one ceremony and a reception? If that is an option. And as we look at that, here is a wedding that we did where they had one ceremony, one reception, and one officiant, which was a rabbi. And the couple is from different backgrounds, and I helped them create a ceremony that really spoke to the two of their traditions. And we combined that into one ceremony, and they had a rabbi. It was really important to the Jewish partner to have a rabbi at their officiate their ceremony. Now, here's another option that we've done many times as well. It's one ceremony, one reception, and two officiants. And in this ceremony, it was a rabbi and a priest. And actually, you're looking at the rabbi is Rabbi Gershon, my husband, and Father Tom is the priest, and we worked with him many different times, and they worked lovely together. They were really open to each other and sensitive to the couple differences and what have you. And I get into that later in some of our other episodes, and also into the one-to-one consulting when we're deciding what framework you want to plan for your ceremony. If you want to have co-officiated, which is what the term that we call, this would be a co-officiated ceremony, and how that would be put together, because there are considerations here to make it so that, back to the beginning of what I said, our goal is that everybody should feel comfortable and included, and that's really important to our couples. Now, here's another example and another option of one ceremony, one reception. Now, this the mother of the groom got in touch with me and really wanted to see some Jewish traditions incorporated into the ceremony, where they had a friend of the family who happened to be a non-denominational officiant, and who didn't know the Jewish traditions. So I worked with the bride, the groom, and the officiant and the mother, and we came up with a ceremony. And during that and this is actually a picture of him breaking the glass, and they were very happy with the results. Okay, so option number 2 is two separate weddings. Whoops. 2 separate weddings. And it's becoming, when we first started working with couples back in the beginning of 2000, early 2000, this didn't come up as much as it has in the last 5 to 8 years or so. And 2 separate weddings. So let me show you an example. Okay. So you have 2 traditional weddings. This tends to happen if you have family that is not living near you or not living in the States. So this tends to happen with Indian weddings, Chinese weddings, where the parents are still, or some of the family is still in the old country, and so, or in India or China or another country. So this is more of a global type of a wedding, and they want to keep the 2 traditions separate, do not want them to mix. And so you want to be sensitive to that when you're going through this phase as to what is really important, and how you can move forward. So you have the 2 traditional weddings, 2 separate weddings. Then we have option 3, 1 wedding, 2 ceremonies, and a reception. And this has happened many times as well, where we've had the Hindu one ceremony, one reception. Oh, no, excuse me. I'm getting confused. Yes. So we had one ceremony, one reception. Sorry, I put that wrong on here. It's 2 ceremonies, 1 reception. So I apologize for that. This is a picture of a wedding we did in Half Moon Bay at the Ritz-Carlton. And the bride and groom came to us and said, well, we're having 2 ceremonies. We're having a Hindu ceremony first, and then we want to have the Jewish ceremony. So it was basically the Hindu ceremony, and the couple, the groom, his family was Russian. So they tend to want to have very traditional ceremonies, and that's what we did. We figured a way how they could incorporate the 2 pretty seamlessly. Now, option 4 is a combination of the first 3 options. And what I want to say here is that it's really about personalizing. And people ask me all the time, do I have to be Jewish for you to help? And actually, no. Well, this is an area that if you want to personalize and customize your wedding with the different traditions, with the different cultures, with the different religions, I have worked with numerous different options, many different options, and all of them actually have been very successful because I use a special method that I call acknowledge similarities and celebrate our differences. So in this combination, I'm going to show you a couple that came to us that really there were a lot of issues in combining the 2 in their wedding reception back home later in the year. So they decided that they wanted to elope and get officially married and have a Jewish ceremony in San Francisco. You can see the Bay Bridge behind you and the Palace of Fine Arts. I found the perfect location, which was a rooftop Airbnb that we rented, and they were able to have the ceremony on the rooftop. Now, here's the kicker. They invited their mothers to come with them on a trip to San Francisco, and they didn't tell them that they were going to get married, but it was really important to them to have their mothers with them at their wedding ceremony. So we planned this whole experience for them and for the mother, and the surprise for the mothers, and it worked out really well. So that pretty much wraps it up for today. And I want to mention that if you know of somebody that you think is dealing with some of these problems, that it may help them, share it out. And and invite them to subscribe to this series and to the emails that we send out on the Jewish Wedding Talk Show. So we'll be live every week day in June, and then starting in July, we'll be live with a new show every Wednesday, Fusion Wedding Wednesdays. And we'll have interviews with different vendors that we worked with. I have musicians lined up that do fusion style music and also classic Jewish klezmer. I have a colleague that I work with many years that is an Indian caterer in San Francisco, and he'll come on and talk about Indian weddings. We have so many great ideas that we're going to share on the show. So if you know anybody that is getting married over the next year, then you definitely want to share it out, and you definitely want to send them the link that they can subscribe. Now, if you happen to be getting married this summer and you haven't dealt with your ceremony, which I find happens a lot, or if you're getting married in the fall, if you need an officiant, if you need to have help with your ceremony script because you keep pushing it to the background, and doing all the fun planning, but this is a little, you feel stuck here, then definitely message me, and you can do that on the Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network page, and I will get right back to you. I'll answer your questions, and we can even book an appointment, and I can help you out. So let me check my notes, but tomorrow, what are we going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow, we're going to answer the question tomorrow of, I just want to grab that for you. We're going to answer question number 2, who will officiate the ceremony? Today, there are so many options on who will officiate the ceremony that I'm really excited to share with you some of those options, and that will shed some light on how you organize another facet of your wedding and plan for it, and make sure that you can get the right officiant for you, and you can book them in time depending on who you choose, so that they can come to your wedding. So that is a wrap. And we went over the 4 fusion wedding questions to answer before you start planning. And this is the Jewish Fusion Wedding Talk Show. We are here every day during June, every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. And if you have any questions, click the message button, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm usually during business hours in Mountain Time. I will, with 9 to 5 Mountain Time, I will answer your questions pretty quickly, within an hour sometimes, but I may be in a meeting or something else, but I will get back to you within 24 hours, and we can talk about your wedding. So have a great day. See you tomorrow morning when we talk about the different officiants.